Hello and welcome to Talking About. My name is Jon Griffith, and tonight we have a very, very special and relevant topic. We're talking about the Point Foundation, and my guest tonight is Michael Marino, and you are the Development Director of the East Coast?
Yes.
So, welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Well, the most obvious question is, what is the Point Foundation?
Sure. Point Foundation is a nationwide organization that provides scholarships, financial scholarships, mentoring and leadership training to students that are marginalized because of their sexual orientation, their gender identity, or their gender expression. So we provide college support to students that are lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender.
Okay. What was the reason for its creation? I mean, I know the answer, but the viewers may not all grasp the reasoning why the Point Foundation is necessary.
Well, we were founded in 2001 by Bruce Lindstrom and Carl Strickland, mainly based off of Bruce's own experiences when he grew up. He grew up in a very evangelical religious family, and when he came out to them, they basically, in their words, turned their back on evil and did not associate with him in any way, shape, or form. Birthday cards, Christmas cards, and gifts were returned unopened to him. So he was left to fend for himself and put himself through school. And he became a very successful businessman. And during that time, he met somebody that became a mentor to him by the name of Saul Price. And Saul, one of the things that Saul always instilled in him was the need to give back to the community once he was financially able to do so. So in 2001, Bruce and Carl, after Bruce retired from his business world, decided to create the Point Foundation to help students that were in the same situation as Bruce was when he was a student. And to backtrack a little, Bruce's, an interesting fact in Bruce's life and in the creation of Point Foundation is that Bruce and his mentor Saul Price went on to become business partners and created the Price Club, which then turned into Costco. So that's kind of the auspices of where the initial sort of money came from to
so
fund
people
the organization.
may have heard of
Costco,
yes.
and BJ's, and the whole warehouse industry was really Bruce and Saul's doing. Yes.
What really sets Point scholarships apart? Is it strictly sexuality issues, or are there other issues that really set them apart from different scholarship programs that are out there?
There's a number of things that set us apart from some of the other scholarship programs that are out there. We fund undergraduate, graduate, and PhD level students. There's also no restriction as to the age of the student or when a student comes to us for help. So we have students that will come to us when they're an incoming freshman, or students that will come to us at some other course of their academic career. You know, they might be a junior or a senior that have just found themselves in need of money at some point. We also, which is different than some of the other scholarship programs, is that we follow the student for the course of their academic career. Typically 4 to 5 years, 5 years maximum. And that's very different from some other scholarship organizations that, you know, it's just a one-time check or a one-time thing. And they really don't have any relationship with the student. With Point Foundation, there's really a two-way street, a relationship that's built. You know, we invest in the student, and we also ask the student to invest in Point Foundation through various methods that I can discuss now, or wait till you ask me about them.
Well, I mean, just we'll follow the natural progression, I suppose. Sure. Is it strictly scholarships, or are there also one-shot grants if a student finds themselves in need also?
We do have students that will come to us for 1 year of study. You know, it's their last year, or they're in a 1-year master's program, or the last year of their PhD program. We typically don't do one-shot like deals, just a quick, you know, one-time thing. We typically like to follow the student until they're done with their degree. Again, we do put normally a cap of 5 years on it, mainly because some of the PhD students that we have are in programs that take longer than 5 years. So we have to put some limit on the amount of years that we can follow the student, because the financial support that we give averages $14,000 a year per student. So again, depending on the student's need and what other sources of funding they may be getting, some students see about $8,000 a year, but some students see up to $25,000 a year.
Right. Well, I mean, the cost of tuition is always
Yeah.
rising,
It's rising,
as with
yeah.
with everything else.
Yeah.
And just in the last few years alone, I'm sure the amount of people in need has gone
Yeah.
up, just with the cost of living.
Yeah, a private four-year institution now costs $35,000 a year.
Yeesh.
Yeah.
So, public school.
Public school is not that much better. If you're an out-of-state student, public school is almost $31,000 a year. If you're an in-state student, I think it's about maybe $10,000 a year.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
But well, what are some of the qualifications for receiving a scholarship?
Sure. We have an online application system that starts in the beginning of December, goes through February, and basically what we're looking for are students that are not only in need financially and or emotionally, but also have, despite whatever obstacles have been put in front of them, have achieved great academic success, have become leaders in their community, have become active in their community, and also exude the leadership potential to, post-graduation, go out into the world and become a positive role model, a positive citizen, and give back to the community in some way. Okay. So we don't, our application process is open to all, regardless of sexuality.
Okay,
so we do.
I was going to ask about that.
We do have straight students that apply, straight allies that apply. The majority of people that apply are lesbian, gay, bisexual, or transgender. And through the application process, typically some of the straight people that apply tend to fall out during the application process because they tend to not have as high of community activism or community involvement within the LGBT community that we might be looking for.
Okay.
But there's really not one set formula that I can say this is what makes this student a point scholar and this is what makes this student not a point scholar, because it really varies on the student. Some students become point scholars because of their leadership potential and their community involvement. Some students become point scholars because of their financial need or their emotional need. We've had students ranging from students that literally lived in their car to complete their high school education because their parents threw them out, to other students whose families were supportive of their sexual identity, but just couldn't afford to send them to college.
And so there's not really a typical student?
There's not really a typical student. It varies. I mean, if you look at the current students that we're funding across the country, we have 90 right now that we're funding across the country. All of them have a very different and very unique story.
Well, just to compare, say, two individuals that you're familiar with, yeah, obviously without name, what is an example of somebody who came from a really hard place?
Sure. We've got a student that grew up in the South, African-American male, whose father was very demanding on saying, you know, you must go to school to become either a lawyer or a doctor. Those are the only two things that an African-American man, you know, can succeed at, or, you know, should succeed at to be successful. Went to Duke, was doing pre-med at Duke, got really active at Duke within LGBT organization there. His father found out of his sexuality and of his involvement with the LGBT group on campus. And a week before finals, the student received a call from the bursar's office saying that his tuition had been pulled.
Oh.
And unanswered phone calls to his family, you know, he had to leave school. He had no other option but to leave school. Fast forward 11 years, he waited to go back to school. He had written off school as an option for himself. He just decided that it just wasn't going to happen. And so he went out into the world and started working. He actually founded a nonprofit group on his own, in North Carolina, I believe, and came across one of our students, one of our scholars that was recruiting at a conference of other LGBT students, and went up to the table and asked what we were about, and, you know, told that scholar his story, and the person that was at the table said, you need to apply, you need to look into this, you're exactly the type of person that Point is looking for. He applied, he got the scholarship, and what it enabled him to do was not only go back to school, but to go back to school to pursue a degree that he really wanted to pursue. He didn't want to be a doctor, he was doing that to please his father.
Right.
So now he is a student here in New York at Parsons studying interior design.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's just, I guess, just one of many success stories.
One of many. One of many.
And somebody who may be on the other side of the coin.
Sure. We've got another student studying law in Chicago who grew up in New England and grew up in a single-family household. His mother was supportive of his sexuality to the point where when he was getting harassed in high school, she kept moving from school district to school district so that he would go to a different school where he might not be harassed or bullied because of his sexuality. And when it came time for him to go to undergraduate and then pursue his law degree, she just couldn't afford it. She raised him on food stamps. So she just could not afford to send him to school. So he turned to us and applied and became a scholar as well.
Yeah, wow. It's just some wonderful work that you're doing. And it's amazing to find such empowered youth as well, and people who are. I think for some people the hardest thing in the world to do is to ask for help.
Yes.
And it's great when people do it, and then eventually when somebody asks them for help, they're more likely to give. So that's great. And as you said, you cover basically all levels of education.
We cover all levels of education, and really what we help the student out with is any expenses that are related to school. So it's tuition, it's room and board, it's health care, school-sponsored health care, books, a laptop, anything that's related to school. For a lot of the students, it's really the first time that they work with our chief financial officer on a budget. And they work on what they expect their expenses to be, and request a certain dollar amount from us based on that, and then break it down into those categories. But so anything that's related to their schooling is something that we would cover. And we typically pay directly to the vendor to alleviate any, directly to the school or to the landlord, to alleviate any, misappropriation of funds or anything, the student saying they're using the money for one thing and using it for something else.
So it is monitored.
Yeah, everything's monitored. Our chief financial officer has his hands full with every semester dealing with 90 students and their bills, and
it could be quite a challenge. But I mean, just from the examples of the youth that you've given me, I'm sure they do their best to keep things as straight and narrow as they can.
Nobody really is there trying to sort of take advantage of us as an organization. And like I said, our application process that the students go through really kind of weeds out anybody that would sort of be suspected of trying to pull one over on us.
Right. Well, just going back to that, you mentioned that it starts with an online process. Yes. Is there a hard copy available as well?
No, it's all done online.
It's all done online.
It's all done online, mainly because we have, and I'll talk a little bit about what the application process is as well. So through the December to February date where applications are being received online, as soon as they're received, they're going into a queue online where they're then read by two readers that serve on our committee of volunteer readers. And that committee is comprised not only of Point-related either board members or staff members, but also outside volunteers that work in the academic area in some way, shape, or form. Okay. Guidance counselors, financial aid counselors, admissions counselors, all read the applications. Okay. And they're scored twice based on a rubric that was designed by one of our staff members. And based on those scores, the first sort of cut of applications is made. And for example, last year, for our scholarships, we received 1,344 applications, completed applications. We had over 3,000 people go online and start filling out an application, but 1,344 people completed the application and submitted it. All of those applications are read twice. They're all scored, and then based on those scores, a first cut is made to about 250 applicants. Those 250 applicants are then asked to provide some supplemental information. The initial application is about a 4 or 5 page form, mainly demographic information, a couple of essays that we ask the students to write about themselves, about any sort of marginalization they might have faced, why they might, why they feel they make a good candidate to become a point scholar, things like that. The supplemental information that is asked for the first round of cuts is typically transcripts from whatever schools they've gone to or are currently going to.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well,
letters of
yeah.
recommendation.
Transcript is the obvious one.
Yeah, transcripts is the obvious one. Letters of recommendation. After that supplemental information is gathered, the selections committee, again, is comprised of our National Board of Regent members and our executive staff members. They meet in person. They all fly to a central location, meet in person, and read all 250 applications again with all the supplemental information, and then literally sit in a room and start, for lack of a better term, debate. Yeah, debating is a much politically more correct term. Debating which students to move on to the next round. Last year, it was cut down to 75 students. Those 75 students were then all given telephone interviews by a member of the selections committee or a staff member. And then based on the telephone interviews, the final selections of candidates were made, and it was cut down to 38. Those 38 candidates were all flown at our expense and put up at our expense to San Francisco, and they all received a 20 to 30-minute interview with our selections committee. And then based on those interviews and everything that's come prior to them, the final selection of scholars are made. And last year we brought on a new class of 27 scholars.
So
went from 1,344 to 27 scholars. And the new number of scholars that comes on every year varies. The year before we brought on 38 scholars. And really what we have to look at when we decide how many new scholars we're bringing on is a couple of things. How many of our current scholars are completing their studies and graduating, thus opening up a spot for a new person? And what's our financial situation? How much money have we raised? How many scholarships can we really fund? Because in addition to the direct financial support, the programmatic support that goes into the students as well, with our mentoring program and our leadership program, which I can talk about later, we spend on average over $30,000 a year per student.
Okay. So yeah, so that's quite an investment, which really justifies the thoroughness of the screening process.
Yes. And it's not the screening process, I have to say, I'm not involved with the interviews because it would be a conflict of interest in the job that I do, is raising money for the organization to then decide who gets the money. But I am there helping logistically. And the selections process isn't set up in an adversarial way in any way, shape, or form. It's a very supportive process for all of the students, even those that don't become a point scholar.
Right. Well, I mean, I would imagine you would want everyone to be their best and to succeed.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate that you do have to make cuts.
Exactly. It's more about just getting to know who the student is as a person and finding out whether or not they're really a right fit for the Point Foundation. And again, it gets back to that we want the student to be as invested in the success of Point as an organization as we are in their success as a student.
Okay. So yeah, well, I mean, it's so far in my past. Yeah, it's a stretch for me.
It's been a long time since either one of us were in school. the staff and I often joke that if we were, to apply, we probably would not have qualified for a scholarship ourselves.
Next week is the 20th anniversary of my 21st birthday. So yeah, I'm pretty far out of it. But okay, so once somebody is selected, what is that? Yeah, I mean, obviously the whole college experience happens.
Yeah, the whole college experience.
But you mentioned that they are guided through that as well.
Yeah, they're guided through that, and actually, if I can backtrack a little and just say sort of what some of the qualifications are in the types of students that we look for. In that, we ask all of the students. We're looking for students that have been able to maintain a 3.3 or B+ grade point average or higher. Again, looking at their community activism, looking at their whatever sort of leadership roles they may have played in after-school activities or community groups, looking at their financial need and their emotional need. It's a mixture of all of those factors that really go into selecting what type of students we look at. And once they become a Point Scholar, we have them sign what we call a contract of excellence.
Okay.
And in the contract of excellence, they agree to adhere to certain things to maintain their scholarship every year.
Such as?
Such as maintaining their grade point average at
Yes,
3.3 or B+ or
right,
higher.
That's the most obvious.
Such as completing a community service project every year that they are funded by Point. They have to do an outside of school community service project that directly benefits the LGBT community.
Okay, what's an example of one of the projects?
Oh goodness, I knew you were going to ask me that. The projects range. We've had some scholars that have sat on advisory boards to other nonprofit organizations, such as the Trevor Project, which is a suicide hotline for LGBT youth. We've had scholars that have done advisory board work for the Matthew Shepard Foundation. We're actually just in the talks of possibly doing something similar with another organization here in New York City. We have one scholar who's in med school whose community service project was to create a medical van that would go out into underserved communities to provide medical services. And part of his community service project was not only to create that van and that whole system, but to get it funded. And he went out and wrote his own grants and got funding to get this whole thing off the ground. One of the other interesting earlier community service projects that has now turned into a more formalized program at Point is our mentoring program.
Okay.
One of our very first scholars took on our mentoring program as her community service project. And so basically one of the other things that we do with all of our scholars is we pair them with a mentor.
Okay,
and
I do want to go into that in a bit. You did bring a short video about the Point Foundation.
Sure.
What's the basic premise of the video?
Sure. The video was created by HBO for us. It was actually
I've heard of them.
It was actually everything was donated by them. The services. It was last, I believe, February or March, 8 hours of filming. They interviewed a number of our scholars and about various topics. Initially, the video was to be used at an upcoming event that we did last year, and a version of it was used for that.
Okay.
But then they got so much great footage from the filming
that they repurposed
it for general, just sort of PSA use.
Okay, so we're going to take a quick look at that right now.
I'm Christopher Kawasaki, and I'm gay.
I'm Ellen Adams, and I'm bisexual.
I'm Don Erickson, and I'm a trans guy.
I'm Julie Schell, and I'm gay.
I'm Jonathan Harrison, and I'm gay.
I'm Jacob Weldon, and I'm gay.
I'm Lilia Espinosa, and I'm a lesbian.
I knew that I was bi from probably 8th grade.
Came to understand myself as a trans guy.
I came out the summer before my freshman year of high school.
You know, I think I might be gay.
Yeah, I am.
Didn't quite get the reaction I thought I would get.
I was not accepted.
I told my mom, and she basically threw a fit, and so my dad comes in and wonders what's going on, and so of course he goes into a rage.
They told me that, this is not how God made me.
Gay people were evil, immoral.
We don't want you around the other kids.
I would never be successful.
Basically disowned me.
I wasn't sure if I would be able to continue with school.
The thought entered my head, I'm not sure I'm going to graduate from high school.
I ended up not being able to go back to culinary school. They thought that the liberalists in New York were transforming me.
I ultimately received a call from the Duke University bursar's office saying that my tuition had not been paid.
I slept in my car, basically, and was trying to figure out what was going to happen. Everything that I believed in up until that point was gone.
And I had to really, as cliche as it sounds, dig in my heart and figure out what my passions were and what I wanted to do.
One of the paths that I took to deal with that is that I focused on my studies.
I struggled as hard as I could to do well in school.
I was the president of the Honor Society. I graduated 4th in my class out of 400.
Top of my class.
An honors student.
And I knew that I wanted to, pursue academic dreams. I needed some kind of additional support. Went to the internet.
Typed in gay scholarship.
And Point Foundation showed up.
The Point Foundation is about providing financial support, mentoring, and hope to individuals who've been marginalized because of their sexual or gender identity. And I thought, wow.
This story was strikingly similar to mine.
There are actually other people in the exact same situation that I am.
And that for me was just a huge wake-up call that I didn't have to give up.
This might really be possible. I might actually be able to go back to school.
There's a lot of soul searching. The application process asks you to talk about some things that you maybe haven't discussed in a good bit of time.
That was the first time,
The very first time
It was the first time in my life
that I ever met a gay adult.
wanting me to tell them my story
just because I was gay.
and it being okay to say the words gay.
Not only were there young people who had been through what I had been through, but there were adults out there who cared about us.
And it was a very strong and very emotional feeling.
I knew that even if I wasn't selected as a Point Scholar, that had already changed my life.
This is going to change my life.
The Point Foundation saved my life.
It has changed my life.
My life hasn't been the same since.
It's allowed me the opportunity to go to the school of my dreams.
Every door in the planet has opened up.
I can achieve anything that I want.
Utilizing my skills across the globe.
I was assigned a mentor.
I couldn't ask for a better role model.
For the first time in my life, I felt like there were a group of people that were pulling for me.
To listen to me whenever I have trouble.
Saying yes, that you can be yourself.
Would provide me with more connections and opportunities.
I'm not sad. I'm not missing that family anymore because now I have it with Point Foundation.
Your voice isn't alone, you're sort of in a chorus.
They are there to help us, and they let it be known that they want to.
With the Point Foundation as my guide, I can change the world.
Change the world.
Whether it's creating policy, whether it's creating communication strategies.
Help improve at least one person's life.
And bringing people closer together.
As a result of being a Point Scholar, I'm now working at a major financial institution on Wall Street.
Studying for the LSATs and preparing to apply to law school.
I'd like to have my own humanitarian design firm.
I want to write books. I'm a singer-songwriter.
Set a counter-example to all of our young people who don't think that they can be anything and be out at the same time.
I am living my dream.
Is this my life? It feels like a movie.
People outside this fantastic organization can help it out by supporting it financially, but also to spread the word.
The change in their pocket can change someone's life.
The fundraising is why I'm here.
We need people from all walks of life to help us help people like me.
You could volunteer to be a mentor or even just be aware of the struggles that people go through.
The Point Foundation is a lot more than money. They're more about what's in here.
Being able to mentor, being able to speak to someone, offering a place at their table.
It covers everything that I might expect for my parents to cover if I was able to rely on them.
Now's your opportunity to provide that for someone else and for the entire next generation of LGBT leaders.
The Point Foundation is opportunity.
The Point Foundation helps you create a better future.
The Point Foundation is family and more.
It's home to me.
Point Foundation is life-saving and life-changing.
The Point Foundation is a dream finally realized.
I'm Ellen Adams, and I'm a Point Scholar.
I'm Don Erickson, and I'm a Point Scholar.
I'm Jonathan Harrison, and I'm a Point Scholar.
I'm Christopher Kawasaki, and I'm a Point Scholar.
I'm Jacob Weldon, and I'm a Point Scholar.
I'm Lilia Espinosa, and I'm a Point Scholar.
I'm Julie Schell, and I'm a Point Scholar. And in May 2009, I'm going to be Dr. Julie Schell.
Hey, to see the interview with me and other celebrities and notables in the community, go to www.talkingabout.info. Go now. Stop surfing for